And he actually booked an appointment for all of us in management to go and get tested. And he instructed us every year we must do it. And we did it. We have done it religiously since then. In 2018, there is a colleague of mine who is currently in Ethiopia. And his dad was struggling with cancer. He was going through prostate cancer treatment. And when Chris learned about it, he introduced him to two doctors, Dr. Sunil and to beyond this would share his personal supplement for him to the father. How, concerned chairman was. It was not just business, it was very personal. Okay? Quoting Maya Angelou, a great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. It brings us together again and again. So chairman, though gone physically, his legacy remains. And the community he created is intact and growing. Rest well, Bwana Chairman. Thank you very much.
I'm going to call, just out of order, Her Excellency, the Ambassador of France, Menonche, to come and give us a
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, first allow me to express my sincere condolences to Dr. Chris, children, Miriam, Robert, and the broader family for the loss of a we all of us lost a friend. France also lost a friend. We did all know the success of Dr. Kirubi's on the front. Kenya has lost a true entrepreneur with a vision of development of his country. The French business community has lost a partner with whom it successfully developed trade and joint development. Group big has been mentioned. I will not develop on this. But Chris Kirubi was more than that. He was also a man very committed in using his influence to promote other causes, as he did in fighting the AIDS HIV scourge. The international community, and I know that some of us are in the room today, including the former UN coordinator, the international community will also remember Dr. Chris Kirubi as the chairman of Kenya's HIV/AIDS Business Council, and for his nomination as special advisor to the UN AIDS Executive Director at a time of urgency. Allow me to share briefly my personal but too short experience with Dr. Kirubi. I remember my first engagement with him. It was at the very beginning of my mandate in Kenya, while preparing President Macron's visit. We had a meeting on the 15th of January 2019 at his house in a very intimate atmosphere, which was unusual for me as an envoy. It was a good point. I found him a warm personality, willing to engage with me in his vision on various aspects, from cultural, political, and economic. But the reason why I have a special memory of this meeting is because our discussion was interrupted by news of the terrorist attack at the Dusit Hotel. The conversation took a different turn. Just like every Kenyan following the happenings, we were so saddened and deeply impacted by the news. We spent the whole afternoon waiting for news and sharing our views on the situation. It made our relationship different from the start. I also remembered him facing with courage his illness. I was so appreciative while much later, despite his health concerns at the time, he insisted in joining us at the French Embassy for our National Day. In many occasions, he showed his commitment towards establishing deep economic relationship with France. Dr. Kirubi was also a member of the Alliance Française board, position he held with the likes of the late Dr. Jane Kiano. He was very keen on the cultural development of the artistic space of the Alliance Française, and through his radio, Capital FM, promoted some of the many events held at the Cultural Center. On Friday, 15th May 2015, at the residence of France, the French government bestowed upon Dr. Christophe Kirubi France's highest decoration, the Legion of Honor, for this lifetime contribution towards youth development and development as a whole, as well as his commitment to economic and cultural rapprochement between Kenya and France. We will miss him indeed, but we are confident that the partnership he anchored will continue after him as a legacy. Merci, Chris.
The next to pay the tribute is from DHL, Mr. Andrew Mutuma.
To Robert, Marianne, Andrew, to your immediate family, relatives, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to you all. I never referred to Dr. Chris Kirubi by his name because I never believe in Africa you ever refer to your father by his name. So I always refer to him fondly as chairman. Nothing gave me or gave the chairman more pleasure, with of course the exception of working on his next business venture. Then inspiring and impacting his networks, those around him, with lessons from his life experiences. I met Dr. Chris Kirubi 7 years ago when I joined DHL Express, and he had insisted that he must recruit the next head of the business personally. It was quite intimidating the first time I met him. But these first impressions would quickly be dispelled, and that you would see he was a kind and gentle giant, firm but fair, and honest to the hilt. I was privileged to not only work with him, but to also learn and engage with him in a personal way that will forever have an impact on my life. What seemed to make Dr. Kirubi stand out was his uncanny ability to quickly understand business strategies and approaches from start to finish. He relied on his numerous years of experience and gut feelings and put his personal guarantee behind every venture he pursued. Chairman brought a lot of integrity and knowledge of the industry to me, and he looked at things objectively. He had a really good feeling for the bumps on the road and how to overcome them. As a dear friend, I remember when I went to him and I said to him that I was getting married. He looked at his calendar and he cleared his whole calendar on the specific day and said he would be there. And on the particular day, he came and spent the whole day with my family and I. What was really interesting is, and with all his plans, he would always offer his time, which was quite valuable. As you can see, he had a lot to do, but he still offered that time to be a friend and offer words of advice. Chairman, thank you for the moment we spent together. Thank you for confiding with me on many things in life and for teaching me so much in the moments we spent at the fireplace. They were God-sent, and I'm eternally grateful. Thank you for challenging me, and I believe all of us seated here, to do more with our lives, to use our gifts, talents, and everything we have to make the most of our lives. You lived and made your life story a bestseller. So on behalf of DHL Express Kenya and the management team that's with me here, and also on behalf of my dear wife, Liz, who met him severally, and my family, I would like to extend my deepest condolences. May he rest in peace, but I pray that he would rest at the feet of Jesus, because in his presence, there's such fullness of joy. He was a joyful man. I wouldn't wish him anything else. Thank you.
The next tribute is representing Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Paul Kapigade.
Andrew, Marianne, Gina, Mara, Robert, the entire esteemed family of Chairman Dr. Chris Kirubi, all the friends of Chris Kirubi who have gathered here, who include all the esteemed leaders of our government, accept my personal condolences and accept the condolences of the entire fraternity of Kenya Association of Manufacturers and the Advisory Council of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, where we served as Chairman Dr. Chris Kirubi. And I'm very pleased to say that Marianne Kirubi has now joined as a director in the footsteps of Dad as a director of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We bring our condolences, and with great sadness, with real great sadness, I stand before you today to celebrate an iconic life. Chairman was a great friend. We had a special bond. He was an astute leader. By saying he was a great friend, he invited me to take a ringside seat in his life. He was a confidant. He was my mentor. And for those of you who may not know, I served as managing director in his businesses for 10 years, close to 10 years. My fondest memory of Chairman Kirubi as a friend was a trip we took to Mexico, where he went to receive an award that displayed his excellence of the #1 best manufacturer of big products in the entire world. And that was Hako Industries back in 2010. the impact he made, the address he made, I will not have enough time to be able to explain to the audience here today. But even as we grieve, let us hang on to the memories of him, the memories of Chairman, ranging from his amazing and charismatic character, infectious laughter, and astute leadership. I'm a graduate of his Institute of Advanced Hindsight and Institute of Advanced Foresight. Chairman was full of magic, and Chairman was full of logic. As a leader, he taught me the art of business. And that art of business, which he continued to teach, even as we were in KM, he would always say, Polycarp, treat customers as human beings with needs, not human beings with wallets. If you do that, your business will grow. Polycarp, please remember that business is a simple cycle. From the time you put a shilling to buy raw materials and packaging and convert it to finished goods, to the time you sell, you recover that shilling back with a profit. He was so simple in his teaching. Those are lessons I continue to apply today in my corporate life. Dr. Kirubi was a trailblazer in shaping Kenya's manufacturing sector and the business community in its entirety. Many within the manufacturing sector echoed of his outspoken, fearless character during his term as the chairman of Kenya Association of Manufacturers. He was a great partner to the Right Honorable Raila Odinga when the Grand Coalition government started the Prime Minister's Roundtable. And you can attest to his candor and his fearlessness in those sessions. We can also attest to his commitment to make this country better, as witnessed by his leadership and contribution, which we have heard about in all the tributes which were paid at home. Dr. Kirubi served as the chairman of the association between 1999 and 2000, a time when he led the manufacturing sector in advocating for the policies that created a very conducive business environment for local industries to thrive. He was specifically, he achieved several things in his tenure. Number one, he defended local manufacturers against onslaught of cheap imports and the impact of liberalization of the economy and advocating for a level playing field. He decried the effects of counterfeits to the health of Kenyans and the impact of the vice on genuine locally manufactured products. Many of you would know that I eventually ended up becoming the chairman of the Kenya Association of becoming chairman of the Kenya Anti-Counterfeit Agency when it was set up in Kirubi in many ways. And individuals such as myself are indebted to Dr. Kirubi in many ways. He trusted us. He trusted me before I could trust myself. He built me. We worked together. He taught me. He was my mentor. He was my friend. He was my brother. And I bring sincere condolences to the family. My children, Kamau, Mwihaki, Shiro, and the mother, Catherine, they all called Chairman, Uncle Chairman, Chris Kirubi. And we grieve with you. We cry with you. We shed tears with you. And the love he extended to us, we shall continue to extend to you. When I was done in my career and I moved on to other things, Chris continued to bless me. And as we lose him, perhaps it may be worthwhile to let you know how many things we did with Chris. When it was impossible to do business in Nairobi, it was Chris who came up with the idea of making sure that Nairobi goes back to the national government politically. It was Kirubi who designed the Sonko Igathe ticket. And we were very glad with that design, and he gave me to execute. And we did not fail. But that mission did not succeed as it was intended, but Dr. Kirubi was unique in his thinking. Let me close by saying he was a genius by birth. At a tough guy by instinct, an elegant man by taste, and the most humble, amazing human being I've ever encountered. I'm distinctly honored and highly privileged to have known Dr. Chairman Christopher Kirubi. Thank you very much.
Next, I'll bring to the podium somebody who doesn't need any introduction from International House Limited. Anybody who went to see Chris Kirubi and knows Aisha. Aisha, please come.
Assalamu alaikum. Familia ya marehemu, watoto wake, wajukuu zake, ndugu zake, watoto wa ndugu zake na jamaa wote wa marehemu, na wapa pole tena. Wageni mashuhuri kutoka serikali yetu tukufu, mawaziri wetu na nyote wanahisa wa kampuni yetu International House Limited, wakurugenzi wa kampuni yetu International House Limited na wakurugenzi wa makampuni zetu zingine zote, na waamkua tena hamujamboni. Leo mimi niko hapa kuwakilisha kampuni yetu ya International House Limited. Nikisema International House Limited, nasema kuwa hapo Bwana Chris Kirubi ndipo alipokuwa akitekeleza majukumu yote ya shughuli zake ambazo sina haja kuzitaja. Zimetajwa, zitatajwa na zitatajwa tena siku zote. Mungu amweke mahali pema. Niko hapa kuwakilisha International House Limited. Wafanyikazi wote wanatoa rambirambi zao zote kwa familia. Hatuwezi kuwa hapa sote. Mimi nimewakilisha kwa kuwa nilianza na Bwana Kirubi mwaka wa 1983 nikiwa mdogo kiumri, sijaolewa, sijapata watoto. Kwa sasa nikiwaambia nimesimama hapa, hata kijukuu ninacho, na yeye amepata hata wajukuu. Mungu atuwekee wajukuu zetu na watoto zetu. Kwa hivyo nilimjua kwa miaka mingi na tumefanya kazi toka tukiwa wadogo na mpaka tumepanuka kadiri mnavyosikia. Yametajwa mengi, sina haja ya kutaja. Leo basi kwa ufupi, kutoka International House Limited tumekuja hapa kutoa rambirambi zetu, na niko na shairi kutoka kwangu kama mfanyikazi wake wa zamani na kutoka kwa wafanyikazi wetu wote wa International House Limited. Nimeleta salamu zao hapa, kaeni muzisikilize kwa makini, na natumai pia wenzangu wanasikiliza nikitoa ujumbe huu kwa bwana wetu, mpendwa wetu, daktari wetu Bwana Chris Kirubi. Kwa heri Chris, kwa heri. Ni Mola ameamua. Sisi hatuna hiari, hatuwezi kukosoa habari yake ya siri. Hekima na uhodari, kwa hayo ulibobea. Bidii zako na ari sote tulijionea. Daima tutakariri mema ulotuachia. Katika yako safari wengi umewainua. Si tajiri si fakiri, wanakutilia dua. Na ulioyafanya mazuri mbele atakuokoa. Amina Rabbi amina. Nenda salama bosi wangu. Mungu akupe hatua njema, akuweke pema peponi. Mwenyezi Mungu awape subra familia yake yote, watoto wake, mama yao, watoto wa ndugu zake na wengine wote hatuwezi kuwataja. Yeye alikuwa ni mtu wetu wote, kwa hivyo shukrani zetu tunazitoa, na Mola akamweke mahali pema. Kapumzike bosi wangu, najua ni magumu, lakini Mola atatupa nguvu na subira zisokuwa na kifani. Asanteni.
The next tribute is from Steve Miner from Hako Industries.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohaki Bashira. I will read the tribute from Hako Industries on behalf of Steve Miner. Robert, our boss Marianne, Andrew, the children, all protocols observed. This is a tribute from the Management Committee and the staff of Hako Industries. In the year 1974, in the coastal town of Mombasa, Dr. Christopher J. Kirubi founded Hako Industries. And over the last 47 years, he steered the company from its humble beginnings as a single product manufacturer to a leading player in the FMCG industry in East Africa. The journey over the last 47 years has been one lined with immense success achieved through perseverance, dedication, and commitment. This has seen Hako Industries develop and establish market leadership with its own brands in the personal and home care categories. The brands most closest to Chairman's heart were Miadi, Amara, and Ashanti Q. Chairman was an innovator par excellence, especially when it came to personal and hair care categories. He loved beautiful things. He loved making women look beautiful. And he was passionate about perfectly good grooming for men. His mind worked in a very gifted way. He had the unique ability of being able to dream and vividly articulate his vision, as well as to follow through with the teams on execution. This is what made Hako Industries capable of innovating and launching many new products. Chairman's love for good sense and well-moisturized skin led Hako Industries to launching Amara, a brand that only 8 years after launch is now the #2 skincare brand in East Africa. Hands down beating legacy brands that have been in the market for many years. He would come across a fragrance or a body cream he liked on his many international travels, and he would excitedly bring us the samples and challenge the R&D and marketing teams to develop a product that could surpass the one he had brought, but he was always clear, make it affordable to the market that you served. He loved African hair, and one thing we must say, he did not suffer the wearing of wigs and weaves very well with women. That is one category to date we never managed to convince chairman we could enter, no matter how lucrative it was. Out of this love for African hair, he started working with leading hair trichologists around the world and formed Miadi. And that was the first brand that came out of the Hako Lab in 2008, and today is a leading brand. With the onset of the natural hair care trends, he visualized and conceptualized Ashanti Q, a brand we launched in 2019 December, even as he battled with his illness. He called African women queens, and he wanted only the very best for them. And that is how Ashanti Q was named after an ancient African ethnic group in modern-day Ghana, and then after the queens of Africa. He never tired throughout the innovation process, and he would sit with the teams for hours on end. He would debate packaging designs. He would look at fragrances. He would test the products himself and give feedback. And he always had out-of-the-world suggestions on what we could do with our brands. He thought big and he acted bold. He always opened doors for Hako Industries in the companies he had connections to. And he made many phone calls to introduce our sales teams to the decision-making people in those companies. An example being Majid Al-Futain, a close partner of Hako Industries to date. Chairman was a big believer in the Big Four agenda, specifically on manufacturing, and his continued determination was to drive Hako towards sustainable local manufacturing and translated to growth of local partners in distribution, in supply of raw materials and manufacturing inputs, as well as sales and marketing. This value chain alone has created thousands of jobs and has contributed to the economic growth of our country and our continent. It was his firm belief that Hako Industries will deliver on the ambition set out in our vision, which is to be the most preferred company with a commanding presence in every household by 2030. We are committed to building a lasting legacy for our beloved chairman by achieving this and so much more in the next 47 years and even beyond. Chairman had a pulse on all areas of the business, and you could not fool him about what was happening in Hako or in the FMCG industry. Every single time he came to the factory, there was a palpable excitement, and staff members would be so happy to see him and to have a chat and a photo op, of course, next to the CK1 car. He knew every single detail about how the factory lines ran, how the financials of the business were, how the sales and marketing initiatives were being run. He was present at every single moment. Chairman appointed his beloved daughter, Mrs. Marianne Musangi, to be our managing director in January 2019. And over the last 3 years, she has worked just as tirelessly as chairman in all areas of the business to build an even stronger company focusing on our own brands. In her, his legacy and dream lives on. The Hako family is deeply saddened by the loss of our beloved chairman. He was our guiding hand, and he will remain with us in spirit, always in our thoughts, always in our hearts, always loved. We will miss you, chairman. We entrust you to the one who formed you from the dust of this earth. May Jesus Christ, who was crucified for you, bring you freedom and peace. May you see your Redeemer face to face. Rest in peace, Chairman.
The next tribute is from Smart Solutions, Harrison Muiro.
To the immediate family, Robert, Marian, Andrew, distinguished guests, good afternoon, church. I'm here today to present this tribute on behalf of Smart Applications, one of the companies that he passionately loved. And words cannot truly express the fullness of Dr. Chris Kirubi, a man we fondly referred to as the chairman. His booming voice, larger than life persona, courage, boldness, love for this nation, great mind and aggressive business drive were much more than the words remarkable can describe. He had an immense gift in getting people together towards a common cause for humanity, solving problems and generating value for society and winning. At Smart Applications, the chairman came into our lives when we were at one of our lowest moments, going through the motions of a typical startup that had a concept which we fully believed in, but which the market had not fully accepted. Then comes chairman, and in the true God-given gift he had, and a strong passion and belief for the youth and technology. His time, his brand, his money, his character in Smart Applications. And as he did with all his ventures, he rolled his sleeves, sat and worked with us, and daily challenged us to do better. But that was not all about chairman. He deeply cared for us and had the heart to ask us about our families. Many times he would pull a chair next to us in the office and share kind words and advise us individually when he got to know what we were going through. He had a nickname for almost everyone and would not hesitate to bring the whole room to laughter in a manner that would brighten up everyone, and yet in the same moment teach very solid business lessons and instill wisdom in our young lives. From a team of barely 7 employees and a small 70 square meter office in 2007, through his visionary leadership, guidance, and unrelenting support, we now stand at 9 countries, serving over 1.5 million lives in access to healthcare and employing over 200 brilliant young men and women. That is the belief he had in the youth. You see, what Dr. Chris Kirubi valued most was a transformation in people. He made all his staff feel like his immediate family and clearly made it known that everybody plays an important role. Don't work for me, work with me, he always said. He did his best to pull everyone together to build companies and made everyone feel a sense of ownership. His philosophy of hard work and big thinking is what is embodied in our vision, which is to create a smarter society of people through world-class innovative solutions and inspiring a world of convenience. Chairman had a vision to realize a fraud-free, easily accessible by all and fully automated healthcare sector. We intend to fulfill this promise not only in Kenya, but across Africa and into the world. He is a man that we shall dearly miss as a business. As individuals, he purposely trained us, engaging with us at all levels, almost on a daily basis, even when he was unwell, to build us into strong leaders. And indeed, through his philosophy, we are a solid company that is rearing to achieve even more greatness into the future. To Robert Kirubi, to Marianne, to Andrew Musangi, the grandchildren and immediate family, we pass our most sincere condolences. May the Lord comfort you. May the Lord renew your strength. May God rest Chairman's soul in eternal peace. Fare thee well, Chairman, till we meet again. Thank you.
The next tribute is from Farida Idris of Capital FM.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Marianne, Robert, Mr. Msangi, all protocols observed. My name is Farida Idris, and I'm here to read out the tribute from Capital FM. At Capital FM, Dr. Chris Kirubi was not only our chairman, but he was a fellow staff member because he had a DJ show in the morning that was very popular in Kenya. Dr. DJ CK, as is popularly known among our listeners and fans, he was passionate about his radio station. He was a down-to-earth man who mingled with everyone. To an extent, we associated him with more of a co-worker than a chairman and a co-owner. The outpouring messages and condolences that we have received from our listeners, locally and internationally, is a testimony of the lives he touched and transformed. As management, from Grace Nyambura, Danny Munyi, Bernard Momanyi, David Muba, and the rest of the Capital FM staff, we have lost a visionary leader, but we are grateful for the skills he impacted in us on making the business-oriented decisions to take the company forward. But even as we mourn the loss of chairman, we also celebrate his achievements and the employment opportunities he has created not only at Capital FM, making us one of the most valuable media brands on the continent, but also in other sectors of the economy. We have no doubt that with the support of our listeners, our partners, and our advertisers, the company remains solid and we will continue to grow in fulfillment of Dr. Kirubi's long-term vision. Dr. DJ CK has rested, but his vision and legacy lives on for generations to come. Fare thee well, Dr. DJ CK. Rest well, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay, so finally from the last one from the corporate side is Mr. James Moria of Centum.
The family of Dr. Chris Kirubi, our guests who are gathered here today, it's my honor and duty to present the message of condolences from the Centum fraternity. We are so many that we had to have a service for ourselves yesterday, and we'll be sharing with you our video for you to see what has been sharing and the outpouring of emotion, because Chris poured himself to that organization, and that organization was a platform where he practiced his faith. I also want to share my own condolences and the condolences of my family. Chris has been a leader and a mentor to us, and I've had the privilege of working with him for 20 years and for achieving great things in that period. I have a tribute that I would like to share with you based on the work that we've done with Dr. Chris Kirubi over the last 20 years. Some people mistakenly think that Christopher John Kirubi found God during his illness. The truth is that Chris's life and work has been a testament of a man who the Almighty God has blessed with incredible skills and capacity, and who lived his life fulfilling God's command of carrying on with the work of converting his extraordinary talents into new creation. Chris is a man who had heeded Paul's advice in 1 John 3:18. Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. And those are the actions that you've heard of for the last 1 week. You also lived the teachings of James 2nd
14 to 20. What use is it, my brethren, if a man says he has faith, but he has no works? Faith without works is useless. Christ in his works created opportunity for thousands to find an outlet for the talents that God has vested in them. Christ took Genesis 1:27 to heart. He believed he was a child of God, created in his image, and that is where he drew his confidence from. He also lived by Genesis 1:28 and took the abundant blessings God had given him and obeyed to his last breath the command from God to be fruitful and increase in number. That is Christ's legacy. So though he had 4 children, Robert and his wife Kim, Marianne and her husband Andrew, and 5 grandchildren, he was a father of a great nation, of great men and women that he has mentored, men and women across the world. Christ's extraordinary gift was that of a visionary, a creator, and an enabler of others. That is a blessing he applied through his long life, and today we celebrate the fruits of his life's work. A lot has been written and said this week on the fruits of this great man. I had the good fortune of working closely with him for 20 years, and I drew many lessons on the character of the man that bore those fruits. In Matthew 7:16, it says, "You will know them by their fruits." This morning, I would like to speak about some of the lessons I've distilled on Christ's character. The first one was Christ was a man of extraordinary faith. In fulfilling his purpose, Christ was a man whose life was grounded in extraordinary faith in his ability to triumph over any odds. Christ surely had lived and lived the advice of Jesus in Matthew 21:21. "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but also you can say to this mountain, go through yourself into the sea, and it will be done." And there's a lot of testaments that are being given of what this great man of faith did. It was this faith that gave him the fortitude to fight the disease for 4 years, overcoming all the odds that have been cited by doctors and experts. Second, Christ was a dreamer. Christ was a man of extraordinary vision and resilience. He believed, like Paul in Romans 4:17, that in faith and God's will, he could call those things that are not as if they are. That was a faith that underpinned his vision to dream about building new cities. Examples are Vipingo in the coast, 2 Rivers in Nairobi, Palmarina in Uganda, all of which he dreamed that he could do, and he did simultaneously. The odds and the risks were never really relevant. One of the things he mentioned to me many times was that obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal. Christ's eyes are always fixed on his goals, and obstacles and risks were mere inconveniences to be overcome. The third one was that Christ was a man of courage, a man who respected himself and others, and who also demanded to be respected. A man who had the courage to pursue his vision no matter how daunting the odds were, confident that any trials were only temporary and that he would in the end conquer. Christ believed that he could overcome any situation. He knew that faith and abundance could not exist in an environment of fear and lack of faith. When I visited him in the United States in late 2017, in hospital at a time when he was critically ill, he asked me to bring him designs for the house that he was constructing. This was a time when many people would be putting their affairs in order. One of the evenings when we were with him, while praying with him, he asked that I read for him Mark 6, verse 5 to 6. That's a verse where Jesus went to his home village, and it says he could not do any miracles there except lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them. He was amazed by their lack of faith. Christ told me that miracles are not performed in an environment of lack of faith, and that's why he was building his house, even in the midst of his sickness, because he believed he was going to overcome it. Christ was a mentor. Christ was a man who worked hard to develop other leaders. Like Moses mentored a young Joshua, Christ has mentored several generations of leaders. Many of whom are in the church today, many of whom have spoken, many of whom are following online today. Christ was a student of the biblical Moses. Ask any leader that Christ has mentored, and they will tell you that they have experienced at least 3 of these attributes. Chris empowered people and gave them authority, no matter how young. Chris provided his mentees with experience and opportunity to apply themselves. You've heard for yourselves the testimonies that have been given. Chris gave all those he mentored encouragement and affirmation. Our challenges as his mentees, as those who have been the beneficiaries, is to do unto others as Chris has done unto us, and to speak life into those who we have had the opportunity to lead, so that we too can be fruitful and multiply. The fifth, Chris was generous. Chris was extraordinarily generous. He multiplied that which God blessed him, and he gave it out freely. I was privy to many of his donations and contributions, which were either anonymous or that he requested be kept confidential. The sixth one was Chris was an eagle. Chris was an eagle who flew at high altitude and kept the company of other eagles, and you've heard them. And he sought them. He soared way above small noisy birds like parrots, sparrows, and crows. His seeming thick skin was perhaps because he was out of the hearing range of the noisy chirping of parrots and the crows in this life. He was a true eagle who soared way above the chattering parrots. And that is probably why many people never really understood him. Seventh, Chris was a lover of knowledge. Chris loved knowledge. He educated himself to the highest possible level. He constantly challenged his assumptions and was constantly innovating. He was a man surrounded by books in his office, at home, and in his bags. He carried books wherever he went, and he bought books wherever we traveled. Finally, he enabled many people to acquire knowledge. And I've seen Governor King there, and he can give you testimony to the 250 people who have students who've gotten scholarships in Vipingo, courtesy of Chris. Chris heeded the advice in Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Finally, Chris loved life, and he was not anxious. Chris ate life with a big spoon. In an empire as large as his, it was inevitable that at any given time, one or two of his companies would be facing one challenge or another. Chris had reasons to be anxious. However, Chris was never anxious, even in the face of seemingly daunting and overwhelming personal challenges. Chris lived Paul's advice in Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your mind. This is my honest and faithful account of this great man that we lay to rest. Matthew 7:16 has given us the scale to weigh the worth of a man, and says, you shall know them by their fruits. It goes on to say that every good tree bears good fruit. Chris has borne good fruit. He was a good man. He was a great man. He was a man of impact, a creator, a man who fulfilled his purpose, a man who employed the extraordinary talents that God had given him in obedience of God's command to be fruitful. The great writer and poet George Bernard Shaw must have had men like Chris in mind when he penned that immortal poem, A Splendid Torch. This is the true joy of life, the being used for a mighty purpose, the being a force of nature instead of a selfish clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I'm of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle for me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I got hold of for a moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. Chris was thoroughly used up by the time he rested. His life belonged to the whole community. He worked to the end. He obeyed God's command and was fruitful. His faith shines through in his works and the lives of those whom he has touched. Christopher John Kirubi has fulfilled his purpose, and we thank God for his long and fruitful life. He did not do this alone. And on his behalf, I thank all those who worked closely with him, those who loved him and enabled him to achieve all that he did in his lifetime. I thank God for having given me the rare opportunity to directly share with Chris what he meant to me, and to personally thank him for all that he has been and done in my life. Christopher John Kirubi now belongs to the ages. Fare thee well, our leader, our friend, our mentor. Fare thee well till we meet again.
I'm glad to know I'm an eagle and not a chirping bird because of the time we spent with Chris. We are going to go now to the various governments that have sent their tributes. His Excellency Alan Ganu, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Integration and International Trade from the Republic of Mauritius, the Embassy of Mauritius here, the Ambassador Jabor Ali Al-Dosri, the Embassy of the State of Qatar in Nairobi. We've received messages from the Embassy of Costa Rica in Kenya, the High Commission of the Republic of South Africa, the Consulate of the Republic of Cameroon, and the Embassy of Oman. The next tribute will be from the former President of Ghana, John Kufuor, and it will be done by Angela Jimo, if she can come.
Hi. So I think there's a little misunderstanding. I think the Consulate of Ghana is here to read something for Ghana. This note here is actually from the current president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, who asked me to personally deliver this note to Marianne. And on arrival yesterday, Marianne asked that I open it today and read it to her. So this is actually from the current president of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, a personal handwritten note to the children of Chris Kirubi. So I'll read it with your permission. So dear Marianne and Robert, I've asked my friend Angela Chermartin to bring you this brief note to express to you my condolences and those of all his friends in Ghana at his death. He was a fine man and a good African. He will be sorely missed by all who knew him. Best wishes and warm regards, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. So from my side, I am a personal friend of Chris Kirubi. I had the privilege of knowing Chris when I lived in Nairobi from 2013 for 2 years. And when Chris and I met, we got along like house on fire. He took me as his daughter, and he invested so much in me. Chris told me, by the time you leave in Nairobi, you need to be a golfer. And he made sure I learned how to play golf before I left Nairobi. Chris told me, you need to polish up on your negotiation skills because you're going to go far and you will need it in your career. And he worked on that with me. Today, I'm standing here to say farewell to my friend, my rock, my oasis. What really hurts me is that when he was sick, I was very far away and I couldn't come and be with Chris his very last days. But I know he's resting well. So today, Chris, I want to say rest well, my friend, and we will keep on living your legacy that you left behind. So Marianne and Robert, thank you. Andrew, thank you for sharing your father with me. He was everything to me, and I thank you for everything you did for me when I was living in Nairobi. Thank you.
So the next tribute is from the government of Ghana and Mrs. Doris Richter, who is the Deputy Head of Mission at the Ghanaian High Commission. Okay, so let's move on to the next. I'd like to first of all recognize the leaders that are here. I can't call everybody, so I will start by calling Senator Wetangula to give a few words, and then we will move on from there. So, Senator, please come.
Good afternoon, Church. The family of our fallen brother, friend, and hero, Dr. Chris Kirubi, colleagues from the political wing, captains of industry, diplomats, fellow Kenyans. I stand here to pay tribute to a great man. I knew Chris Kirubi way back in 1985. I was having lunch in a restaurant and he was sitting next to me. And we started a conversation, and there I learned that him and I went to the same school, Friends School, Kamsinga, a giant of many schools in Western Kenya. And he also went to another school in Western Kenya called Kolanya. Thereafter, Chris became a close friend. But as I sat there listening to many tributes, I've realized that I didn't know so much about the length and breadth of the successes, impact of Chris on our country. He goes to his Maker as truly a man who left this country better than he found it. He's touched many people. He's touched many institutions. I remember there was a time we were regenerating Kamsinga as a school. And Chris called me and sent me a very generous donation to take to the school. And the school has benefited immensely from that donation. When I was the foreign minister of this country, Chris called me once and said, "My friend, I have invested in Ethiopia and I'm having some difficulties that I need to be sorted out." I told him, "Come to the office in the morning." I go to the office at 6:30 so that we can discuss and see what to do. When I arrived at my office at 6:30, Chris was there waiting for me. He had arrived way ahead of me. That is how studious he was to getting what he wanted to do. We sat in my office. I placed a phone call to the then Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Meles Zenawi. And Meles told me, "Moses, if it is somebody that you know well and is having any difficulty with my government, come over with him." The next day, Chris and I were in Addis. We had dinner with the Prime Minister, and I believe the issues that Hako Industries was encountering in Addis were resolved. That is how practical Chris was. So as we come here today, we learn one lesson, that Kenyans can truly, in working hard, build Kenya. And Kenyans working hard can change lives of fellow Kenyans. The last issue I want to say about Chris is his friendship with people beyond the borders of our country. Chris was a very close friend, not just as an honorary consular of Ghana, but of the former president of Ghana, John Kufuor, who also happens to be my close friend. Every time I have spoken to Dr. John Kufuor on phone, he has asked me about Chris. He's told me how Chris used to visit him. And you Kenyans may recall when we had election difficulties in 2007, 2008, Dr. John Kufuor was the chairman of the AU. And he came here to bring sanity to the warring sides of our politics. When he was here, he was permanently in company of Chris Kirubi. I used to join them at the Intercon for a cup of tea, for a dinner. And you could see the chemistry between the two. And John Kufuor said, if Kenya has one man who has got a knack and an eye for entrepreneurship, it is this man, Chris. And you can imagine that was a president, the chair of AU, but they were on first name terms with Chris. Chris called him John, he called Chris, Chris. That is the camaraderie of our fallen brother, that he touched others. Fare thee well, my brother Chris, Andrew, your family, and the entire Chris family, the Musangis, if they're here, those are my brothers from Western. We stand here to say, may the good Lord rest the soul of Chris in eternal peace. That is the journey that we all are going to end up. And those who have spoken here, please carry on his legacy, hold the industries he has built, hold the enterprises he has developed, so that they can continue building our economy so that this country can move to the next level. Thank you.
Next, I will call Honorable Mudavadi to come and say a few words.
Robert, Marianne, Andrew, and the entire Kirubi family. Good afternoon, friends and relatives of Chris. First, kindly accept my condolences and those of my wife, Tessie, on this loss. I will speak very briefly because a lot has been said. But I'd like to say that Chris Kirubi was extremely candid. You know, when you're talking to him and you have an idea or an opinion, he will not tell you it's a bad opinion. He will tell you it's a stupid opinion. That is how candid he was. Because when you say it's a bad opinion, he's being polite. But Chris was straight. He would shoot from the hip. And during my time as Minister for Finance, I shared a lot with Chris because he had the pulse of the economy at his fingertips. He had the pulse of the political situation. And for the 5 years that I read the budget of this country as Minister for Finance, one of the key people that you would have to seek advice from so that you know whether you are getting it right or not was Chris Kirubi. He would always be there to advise, so that the policies and the direction you take would make sense to business and to the country and to the economy. That was Chris. He was also politically astute. On one occasion, we went together with him and the late President Moi for a delegation, as a delegation led by the President, to the British Confederation of Industries to talk about the progress that we were making as Kenya, because we had just come out of a very difficult economic situation where aid had been curtailed, inflation was soaring, and things were difficult for the people of Kenya. So at this conference at the CBI, I did what I could do as a Minister for Finance, and my boss, the President, was there, and Chris was part of the delegation as a business person. And one of the things that he observed was that the participants of the CBI kept on heaping some praise, and they were not directing it at the head of delegation or the government, but saying the Minister for Finance has done a good thing. So at lunchtime, Chris Kirubi took me for lunch. He said, forget about going lunch with your boss, come with me. And he told me, let me tell you something. When you go back in the afternoon, change tact. The praise must not be to you, but to your boss. I have been with these people for some time. Mind your steps, mind your language. And indeed, when we went back in the afternoon, I changed tact. And he said, now you will go far. Every time, remember when your boss is there, do not try to outshine your boss. That was Chris Kirubi at a very personal level. So I stand here to bid farewell to a good man, to a patriot, and to the family. May you find solace under God's care. Asanteni sana.
Next, allow me to invite the Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka to come and say a few words.
To the family of late brother Chris Kirubi, dear colleagues, our sister Teresa Werimu and the FEM family, we praise God for this wonderful sanctuary. You too have come from far. Fellow mourners, on a light note, I realize I'm not the only one who uses the word stupid. Chris Kirubi would give it to Musalia. And I remember it was not even Chris alone. Once a famous president of the United States, Bill Clinton, fashioned his whole campaign theme on what we called the economy stupid. But we are here to celebrate a wonderful Kenyan, a statesman. We can talk about Chris Kirubi for a very, very long time. But I want to agree with what I read this morning, a good tribute by one of his good friends. I don't know that John Gumi is in the house. I really enjoyed reading what he wrote about, a special tribute to our friend, the late Chris Kirubi. In fact, it traces a history of the captains of industry from independence. Names like Sir Ernest Vassie, Bruce Mackenzie, and how Chris Kirubi had the occasion to understudy them and promised that he would do better than them. And listening to Maury of Centum Industries, I don't know whether Centum is industries or everything, and look at the skyrocketing Two Rivers and Vipingo and all, and not just in Kenya and the region, then we have reason to celebrate Chris as one of our main captains of industry. But yet, not a die-hard capitalist. In fact, is what I would call a coarse capitalist, a social capitalist. Would create employment opportunities for citizens and the African continent. In fact, truly a Pan-Africanist. One who, without showing hatred, would want to compete with the West in real terms and grow his country's economy. Therefore, as we bid farewell to him, I personally remember him came to my house in the company, this was in January 2008, in the company of two other great men, Peter Munga of Equity and James Mwangi, who was then the CEO. And then Chris joined them. The mission was simple. It was to tell me, you have to act in a manner that saves our country. This, as you remember, was following the post-election violence of 2007 and 2008. And that is how I became our country's 10th vice president. A negotiated position, thanks to men who had the courage to come and tell me, Kalonzo, you're being stupid. You must save your country. Well, I must go and say kwaheri to Chris tomorrow at the village, because he remembers his village. And indeed, as Moria told us, that was a vision. Chris has just faded away to glory. And thank you, Sister Teresia, for praying with him the moment before he went for that operation. And his testimony now is clear. He's gone to be with the Lord. May his soul rest in everlasting peace. Amen.
Next, allow me to invite the former Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga.
To Robert, Marianne, and the rest of the family of our friend Chris, our fellow mourners who have come today. Good morning. I'm the one who is not appropriately dressed because I've just come from Mombasa. I hope I'm okay. I raised to come and be here this morning because of my friend Chris Kirubi. And a lot has already been said about him, about his life, about his businesses, his contribution to prosperity of our country. So if I went that direction, I think I'm going to be flogging a dead horse. Chris Kirubi is a good friend of mine. We met for the first time in 1970 when he was working with Kinatco. which was then a big transporting company in the country. I went to see a cousin of mine who was then the technical manager of Kinatco. This cousin is the one who introduced me to Chris. This was my first encounter. The second would be when he was in the company of his brother-in-law, Michael Kinyanya, who was the husband of Elizabeth. And they were two together. Michael tried to introduce me. I said, no, we already met with Chris. And from there on, our relationship continued. The two of them loved horse racing. They're the ones who introduced me to horse racing. That every Sunday, we're going to Ngong Racecourse to watch horses race. So we became friends, even social friends. But it was also a true Kenyan who was also concerned about Kenya. When multipartyism came, we had Ford. Then, when Kanu split, the DP was formed. Chris and then John Keane joined the DP. Then they were in the DP. When the elections were coming, the Ford itself split into Ford Asili and Ford Kenya. So now there was a general fear that the opposition was going to lose the elections. And then there were efforts to try to do mediation. I remember Chris Kirubi and John Keane led this team from DP. Then there was also the late Kibaki Muridhi. On our side here, we were with Paul Mwite, James Orengo, trying to do these negotiations with John Keane and Chris. These meetings were taking place in Chris's office in the International Lifehouse that time. Unfortunately, we were not able to. At that time, the appeal was that if you don't hang together, you shall be hanged separately. Unfortunately, that did not come, and therefore we were hanged separately. The next other time that Chris was doing mediation was following the crisis of 2007, when many people had died, and then we had the team. First, President Kufuor had come, and he was the one who was all the time bringing President Kufuor to us. So they were all the times together whenever Kufuor came to meet with us at the Intercontinental Hotel. Then it is John Kufuor who suggested the name of Kofi Annan as the mediator. And Kofi Annan came and led that team of mediation. After that, there was now this issue of how do we form the Grand Coalition government? How do you share the portfolios within the Grand Coalition government? There was a stalemate, almost a breakdown. And the two people who came to approach me to agree to a compromise, one of them was Chris Kirubi. The other one I will not mention here. But Chris came and passionately pleaded with me to agree at least to have a dialogue with Kibaki at that time. He was so passionate, and because of the old time's sake, I said, I'm ready. And then arrangements were made. We had this meeting in Sagana with Kibaki. Eventually, we managed to come up with a compromise solution, and the Grand Coalition government was formed, thanks to initiative by Chris Kirubi. So we have had good times with Chris, many things we've done together. The last time, of course, not the last time, at the time I was sitting with him in the house, when he then told me about his sickness and asked me about the hospital in Massachusetts. And because he knew I had been on a sabbatical in Boston. And I gave him the name of the doctors. And that's how he ended up in the Massachusetts General Hospital for treatment. And when he came back, he reported to me how he had enjoyed his stay in Massachusetts and how those people had looked after him. So we would sit sometimes and talk about many, many issues. Chris was a visionary person who had a passion for excellence and wanted only the best for his country, Kenya. Sometimes last year, he had offered to assist Gor Mahia Football Club. He called me because I am the patron of Gor Mahia Football Club. And he said we should go to Two Rivers. So I took the entire Gor Mahia Football Club to Two Rivers. And Chris gave them not only a donation, but also offered the playing field there for Gor Mahia as a training ground. So Gor Mahia has been training there because of generosity of Chris Kirubi. That day, when we were there, when they played the music, Jerusalem, and me and Chris danced crazy Jerusalem. That video went viral. Me and Chris dancing Jerusalem. So, what do I say in conclusion? This was a man who believed that Kenya is playing in a different league. That Kenya does not deserve to play in the league in which Kenya is playing today. That Kenya can be in another league. And he used to give a very good example of countries that have been able to transition, like Singapore. He really loved to give examples of Singapore and Malaysia and Korea. And I was saying these countries were just as poor as Kenya, but they have managed to transition from poverty to wealth. The example I'll give you is that in 1952, Ethiopia helped South Korea. Ethiopia sent 5,000 troops to South Korea to help South Korea. In 1952, Ethiopia was more developed than South Korea. But then, 60-something years later, the GDP and the per capita income in Ethiopia was still just $300 per annum, when in South Korea it was 19,000. Koreans now go and build schools in Ethiopia. You ask yourself, what happened? And the same thing has happened also to us here in Kenya. We are colonized, but so are Korea and all those other countries. So we really believe that it is possible to transition from poverty to prosperity if you've got right policies. And he was also an enemy of corruption. We talk very passionately against corruption. He said there is very many ways of making wealth without having to steal. Those who steal, and after stealing that money, then they will run around and give donations to schools in terms of buses, women groups, youth, and then come to churches and donate millions of shillings without saying where that money is coming from. Chris Kirubi hated those people and believed that you can make money without having to steal it. May the Lord rest Chris' soul in total peace. Thank you.
Actually, Honorable Raila Odinga probably knew about the dress code was black and red, and I thought that's why he came that way. Let me ask Honorable Rachel Ruto to come and give her message of condolences on behalf of the Deputy President.
Robert, Marianne, Andrew, your children, and together with the family of Chris, Fem Family Church, together with the leaders, and to bring condolences from my husband, the Deputy President of this great republic. He is not able to be with us today, but he asked me to bring his condolences and together with our family. And from my own personal encounter with Chris, allow me to say one thing. I know James Moria has talked about the attributes of Chris, but I think he forgot one that I would like to say. Chris was a giver. I remember in 2017, when we went around the country praying for the nation during the electioneering period, we were concluding here in Nairobi. And I approached my spiritual authority, Mam Teresia Wairimo, if we could do the final prayer in Uhuru Park. And we came together to put money together to be able to do that event. And I remember Mom asked that we could invite the late Chris Kirubi. And we had a dinner here in the church to raise funds for that prayer meeting in Uhuru Park. And I remember when I stood to speak, the late Chris Kirubi asked me how much money we needed for the event in Uhuru Park. And when I gave him the figure, he said that he was going to pay the entire amount and that now dinner should be served. Chris was a giver. It surprised all of us because it was not little money, as you know, it was in the millions, but he gave it all. And I remember when we had the prayers on the 31st of July of 2017, he was there himself. And I want to attest to all the people that have said that Chris was a Christian, he loved the Lord, and he was born again. When we heard about the sad news of his sickness, we went again with Mam Teresia Wairimo, with our sister Christina, to see him. And I remember taking to him a cross-stitch piece just to remind Chris of the many pieces of lives that he has put together. We condole with you. May the Lord comfort you. It is not easy to lose a father. It is not easy to lose a leader like Chris. But I just want to tell you that the Lord will comfort your hearts even as you continue. And to all the work that Chris has done in this country, we really appreciate him because of the many lives that he touched. You know, the employment that he has given many people that otherwise would never get an employment, and how he has built the economy of this nation. We are grateful to him, and we say, rest in peace, Chris Kirubi. May the Lord bless you.
And finally, I would like to call Ambassador Amina Mohammed to come and give the tribute on behalf of His Excellency the President.
Robert, Marianne, Andrew, the entire Kirubi family, our leaders who are present here today, Sister Teresia Wairimu, Mama Rachel Ruto, dear friend and Sister Christina, and I hope you'll allow me to also mention Sid Chatterjee, who came in from China to be here with us this morning. He's the UN coordinator in China now. He was in Kenya before. I gave my tribute, my personal tribute, last night. And I just want to recall two things that I said. That Chris was a dear friend of mine who was really generous with his time. I think that all of us know that if you called Chris, you'd call back. And that if he didn't hear from you for a while, he would call you and look for you. He also was an infectious patriot, nationalist, and had an infectious sense of purpose. He truly was a great friend to me and to my family, and for that I will always be grateful and I will always remember him. This morning I have the privilege and the honor of reading a message of condolence to the family, relatives, and friends of the late Dr. Christopher John Kirubi from His Excellency President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. It's with immense grief and a deep sense of personal loss that I send you this message of condolence and encouragement following the death of Dr. Christopher John Kirubi. In the passing of this powerhouse of a man, we have been robbed of a seasoned businessman, entrepreneur, industrialist, innovator, and philanthropist, whose influence spanned real estate, media, retail, agriculture, charitable works, financial services, banking, and many others. Aside from being a highly successful business mogul, Mr. Kirubi was also a celebrated mentor and role model with a passion for uplifting and supporting others. Under his wing, many of the past and present crops of business leaders and media personalities rose to prominence. Socially, Chris was a cheerful, approachable, and accessible corporate leader who interacted with Kenyans of all walks of life with ease. Indeed, he was one of the most accessible corporate leaders that our country, Kenya, has ever produced. He interacted with Kenyans, especially the youth, on his radio shows, in public appearances, and inspirational social media posts. Due to his wise words and advice, especially the sharing of his experiences in overcoming adversity, generation after generation of Kenyans and Africans improved their personal and business circumstances. Death is not the end of the legendary Chris Kirubi. He's immortalized through his many achievements, the many millions of lives made better by his business brilliance, the billions of shillings added to our economy through his innovative projects, and the immeasurable number of ways he brought happiness to all our lives. To the family of the late and great Dr. Christopher John Kirubi, led by his children Robert Kirubi and Marianne Msangi, as you mourn the death of Dr. Kirubi, may our prayers and those of other Kenyans of goodwill give you and your family strength and fortitude. May you take so the word of God in Revelation 21:4, which says, "And God shall wipe away all your tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. We are all privileged that Dr. Christopher John Kirubi lived amongst us. We thank God for the time we shared with him, for his long life, and for all that he was. May the Almighty God rest his soul in everlasting peace. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya.
Dad and I used to speak about, but like he has all that we've said during the last 3 days, he really enjoyed spending time with young people. Believe it or not, I was actually young when we met, so that was something that I did not take for granted. He's been at Moons in my life. He got me my first job. He was there when I got married and all the rest of the time. So thank you very much. I think now I'm going to hand over to Anthony Boro, who is going to deal with the family tributes and the eulogy, which will come next. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon, all. I'm going to take you through the family tributes this afternoon. But before I do that, I would like to call to our family members who will take us through the eulogy of Dr. Chris Kirubi. I will call, it will be done in 2 parts, so I'll call Jimmy Kinyan and Susan Schlatter. I think the order is Susan and then Jim. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. All protocols followed. I was told late last night that I would be reading the eulogy. I had a look at what had been written and I thought, I'm going to do my version. So here it goes. Christopher John Kirubi was born on the 20th of August 1941 in Kongoni Farm in Naivasha. 1941 was, of course, the height of World War II and also the peak of colonial rule in Kenya. Christopher was the fourth-born child of Andrew Maina and Kafura Wamboi Joguna. Andrew worked for a white settler family who are owners of Kongoni Farm. It is indeed in Kongoni Farm that Andrew and Kafura raised their children, namely Salome Wamboi, Elizabeth Waithera, the late Cosmos Njuguna, Christopher Kirubi, Anthony Martin Maina, and Dr. Michael Gishohe Kirubi. Alas, tragedy hit the family when their mother, Kafura, died of childbirth complications in 1948. Andrew subsequently remarried, which caused a rift in the family when his new wife was unable or unwilling to take care of his 6 children. Shortly thereafter, the family disintegrated and went into different directions, divided amongst various relatives. Christopher, however, continued to stay with his father in Kongoni Farm. Alas, tragedy would strike once again when Andrew was killed at the beginning of the Mau Mau War. These were turbulent times. The settler farmer, fearing for his life, relocated to South Africa, but not before he promised to educate young Christopher, who was now an orphan. Christopher attended Naivasha Primary School, then joined Colonia High School and completed his A-levels at Friends School Kamusinga. He then joined Strathmore for his A-levels, but was unable to complete his studies due to financial constraints. Christopher was, however, a lifelong learner. He loved education, and throughout his life up to the end, he continued to engage in continuous education. Now my brother Jimmy will take over and do his work experience.
Good afternoon. Business. Let me look at this. Dr. Kirubi has had a long and rich career history. He began his work life as a salesman with Shell. He was then employed at Voice of Kenya, who at one time even took him for further training in Australia. Thereafter, he worked for the pharmaceutical company Sterling Winthrop, and later worked for CMC Motors, also worked for Kenatco. Those are some of the few companies he worked for before he decided to go into self-entrepreneurship. He registered and opened his own firm, Kiruma International Company Limited, trading mostly in coffee, and had one property at that time, Kiruma Court. In 1982, he set up shop within a rented office at International Lifehouse. This was a building owned by Kunzwe Development Corporation. And then when the owners left the country in 1985, they appointed Dr. Kirubi as a director. Later, together with his partners, Dr. Kirubi acquired the building from Kunzwe Development Corporation, and it's at this time that he changed the name to International House. He was able to substantially grow his portfolio of properties. He was able to expand also to other sectors of our economy through his entrepreneurship, thus giving birth to other companies that he owned, such as Hako Industries. Over the years, Dr. Kirubi has worked, owned, and been a board member in various local and international companies and institutions, ranging from government, retail sector, manufacturing, advertising, property, agriculture, etc. He also served in many industry associations like CAM, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Global Health, NGOs, Global Business Coalition for Africa, and as chairman of the Kenya Private Sector HIV and AIDS Business Council. Until he passed away, he was the chairman of Hako Industries. Manufacturers have having entered the manufacturing sector in the 1970s. He was recognized as one of the first indigenous Kenyans in manufacturing. He was also the chairman of Coca-Cola, Nairobi Bottlers, DHL, Worldwide Express, Capital Media, International House Limited, Smart Application. He was the deputy chairman of Bayer, East Africa. All of these companies, of which we've heard about,
and how he went about his business in the last few days at his home, and also when the business side gave their tributes here. He was also the director and majority shareholder of Centum Investment Company. Apart from his personal work, and we've heard from the political class, Dr. Kirubi was involved extensively with several African governments. He also served on the National Economic and Social Council, which was responsible for crafting Kenya's current blueprint for growth, Vision 2030, under President Kibaki's regime. He also has worked with the government of Ghana, members of the Investors Advisory Council, and as Ghanaian Honorary Consul General in Kenya from the year 2000 to 2008. He is a true nationalist, passionate ambassador for the Kenya country brand. He always had his Kenya wristband and served as chairperson of Brand Kenya board from March 2016 to December 2017. He was very passionate about making a difference in the lives of disenfranchised groups and was involved in a number of social causes. Until his passing away, he served on the Harvard Global Advisory Council. He also served on the institution's Africa Advisory Council. He was a co-founder, council member of the African Union Foundation, which was formally launched in 2015 to help Africa be responsible for providing an economic platform for her own without always relying on donor funds. He was a founder, trustee of the August 7th Memorial, as we heard from the French representative. Dr. Kirubi has been featured in several local and international publications, most notably Forbes Africa Magazine, Forbes Africa Blog, News Africa Magazine, which features 100 most influential Africans, business and in the financial category. And on the life journey side, he's been on Scaling Heights, High Achieving Men in Kenya. He was also, in 2015, awarded Africa CEO of the Year by the Africa CEO Forum based in Geneva. He was honored by several governments and is a recipient of the Chief of the Burning Spear, Kenya, the honor of the Grand Medal, Ghana, and the insignia of Chevalier of the Legion of Honor by the French government in 2015. An occasion we had great honor in attending. I think there, I'll bring you to sort of round it up. So.
When we think of the life of Christopher John Kirubi, we think primarily of great achievements, education, business, media, etc., and the creation of wealth. We think of a life of luxury and worldly belongings. But more than anything else, Christopher John Kirubi loved his family. He did everything in his power to take care of his children and siblings. But deep down in his heart, he never stopped yearning for his mother, Kafura Wamboi. His daughter, Marianne Wamboi, and the many nieces blessed and honored with her name can attest to that. A reporter once asked him, "Dr. Kirubi, if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? You have achieved everything possible. What is left for you to do?" His answer, heartbreaking but not surprising, was, "I would give it all up in a heartbeat just to see my mother's smiling face once again. Christopher John Kirubi rests easy in the loving arms of Kafura Wambui today. May God hold them both in the palm of his hand. Thank you.
As we continue, I think the family, we are going to be very brief. But before I go to the other family members, I think there's one person that we left out. That is David Kibaki, to give a tribute on behalf of the former president, Honorable Mwai Kibaki.
Good afternoon. Marianne, Robert, and the entire Kirubi family. This is a message of condolence from Mwai Kibaki, the third president of the Republic of Kenya. I have received the sad news of the passing on of Dr. Chris Kirubi, a man I have known closely for many years. May the Almighty God grant his family and friends the courage to bear the loss of their loved one. Of the many facets Chris is known for in Kenya, and indeed further afield, his acumen as an industrialist and a businessman clearly stand out. He was an entrepreneur par excellence and had an exceptional eye for opportunities that to some were merely tenuous or even ethereal. A man of notable charisma, Chris had a clear philosophy from which he derived his sense of purpose and style of engagement. His prodigious success was certainly not a result of happenstance. Chris was as strategic in his endeavors, be they running industries, media, serving the public, or farming, as he was hands-on. As a mentor, he shared a lot of wisdom in his popular Ask Kirubi forum. Chris was a jolly man. He leaves behind an indelible legacy, bedecked with, and among other elements, industriousness, determination, and public spiritedness. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Mwai Kibaki, third President of the Republic of Kenya. Thank you.
So the next stage, I think we've categorized ourselves into siblings. So I'll have somebody from Dr. Michael Geshohe Kirubi come and pay tribute on behalf of Dad and the family.
Good afternoon. All protocols observed. My name is Maria Mumbi Kirubi. I am the daughter of Dr. Michael Gishuhi Kirubi, who was the youngest brother of Christopher Kirubi and the cradle of his heart. The bond that my dad shared with Uncle Chris was a bond that was so unique and so dear. It was a bond we've never seen before. So unique that my dad decided to take his name as Kirubi, and we took the last name as Kirubi. That is why we are called Kirubi. I'm here on behalf of my dad to read his tribute. To my brother Chris, you loved me from a tender age and raised me as your own until your last breath. I will love you eternally. When I was in class 3, Chris took me in and he raised me as his own. He loved me, he educated me until my PhD level. He gave me all the tools I needed in life. He supported every journey of my life and each milestone. He was the only father figure I ever knew. He held our family together and he took it on his shoulders to take care of his sisters and his brothers. Anytime we came to him for help, advice, be it one thing or another, he was always there. He was always real and honest. Anyone who knows Uncle Chris knows that he said what you needed to hear when you needed to hear it. He'd push you to be the best, and he always believed in you. You counseled my children and loved them as if they were your own. You taught them the values of discipline, you equipped them, and you helped them understand the importance of education and gave them a role model to always look up to. Even though you are not here with us anymore, your spirit and your legacy is with us, and it will live on forever in our hearts. Napoleon said once, when he was boasting about what he had done for France, after it had failed so many revolutions, "Remember, France, I picked you from the gutter with my sword." And that is what my brother Chris did for me. He picked me from the gutter with his sword, loved me, nurtured me, and made me into the man I am today. When I knew I was coming to speak here on behalf of my dad, I said to him today, "Daddy, what will we say? How will we say goodbye to Uncle Chris?" And he said, "There is nothing else to say but to tell him I love him." And that is what I leave you with. Uncle Chris, we love you. Rest now. Thank you.
I think I'll now move on to the grandchildren. There was a tribute from the grandchildren.
Good afternoon, everyone. My Guka was different things to all of us. He was a mentor, a boss, even a partner. Maybe your relationship goes a bit deeper, like a friend, a cousin, an uncle, a brother, or a father. He was my grandfather, and so much more. He taught me many things, like to be strong, true, to always follow my dreams, or being fearless, but most of all, to be brave. When my grandfather was first diagnosed with cancer, I was scared. But whenever I went to visit him, he was smiling. He was always smiling. When he had to go to America to get treatment, I went with him, and whenever we visited him in the hospital, he was smiling. When he was first diagnosed with brain cancer, he kept on smiling. I was scared during all of this, but whenever I saw him, his smile made my fear go away. It was gone so fast that it was like it was never there. Now it's my turn to be brave, and not just for him, for my mum and my Uncle Robert, and the rest of my family. He all taught us something, so let us appreciate that.
Dear Guka, I know we all miss you dearly, and I know we all prayed for you, but it makes me happy knowing that you're in a better place and you're not in pain. My love for you is endless, more than you would believe. You lived a joyful life traveling everywhere. We all love you so much, Guka. There is no one in the universe that could take your place, Guka. May you rest in peace.
I called Christopher Jr. to come and play a flute.
Hi everyone. So I've agreed literally on my flight here to play some music for you. But before I do, I wanted to just say a few things. As everyone was speaking, I was reminded of a memory when I was really young and Guka would call me and he would always ask me about school and how I was doing. And I'd try and tell him that, I was having a great time and I enjoyed school, and he would always interrupt me and say, but are you number one? And I think my life's taken, a very different path to his, and I have no head for business or money. My dad can confirm that. But I just wanted to say how grateful I am that I had someone in my life who constantly inspired and encouraged me to be great and showed me what greatness is. And while I mourn the time that we have spent together, I also mourn the fact that I don't have the chance now as an adult to show him the life that I've built for myself and the things that I've achieved, and to express to him how grateful I am and how instrumental he's been in helping me build that. And I hope he'd be proud of me, and I'm very proud to be his grandchild. So yeah, I need a couple minutes just to set up, if that's okay. Is there like a music stand or something I can use?
As Christopher is setting up, I think we go to the next tribute, and these ones will come from nephews and nieces. I think there's a combined one from Maria Mumbi and Shazan Kirubi. Please come on stage.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Shazan Kirubi, daughter of Dr. Michael Gishuhi Kirubi. To many of you, Uncle Chris was known as Chairman, Daktari, DJ CK, among many other titles. But to me, he was simply Uncle Chris. Beyond his public persona, he was the pillar and the patriarch for our family. He was my father's eldest brother and a father figure to my siblings and I. For as long as I can remember, Uncle Chris always challenged us to do better and to be better. He was a man of many talents, and I was always amazed by his intent and his intuition. Uncle Chris would always jokingly introduce me as his niece who worked with refugees. That was what many people came to know me as. It was a joke between him and I because he was intrigued with what I did. Also, he's the one who influenced my decision not to go into law, but to go into business administration, and then I veered off into international development. We had many debates by his fireplace talking about the displacement crisis in Africa, and me trying to challenge him to try and invest in the humanitarian sector. Like the true businessman that he was, he wanted to know the risks involved. I will forever cherish those evenings spent together and our long walks in Thika at the farm. I always thought that Uncle Chris had an extraordinary life. Looking back now, I realize that it was not the events in his life that were extraordinary, but the way he faced them. He faced life with intelligence, courage, wit, and purpose. And as I finish my tribute, I leave you all with a short quote from one of my favorite authors. If God gives you a seed, he expects you to plant it. If he plants it for you, he expects you to water it. If he waters it for you, he expects you to prune it. If he prunes it for you and keeps it for you, he expects you to harvest it. If he harvests it for you, he expects you to store it. And if he stores it for you, he expects you to keep it safe from getting rotten. And if he keeps it from getting rotten for you, he expects you to account for the seed. Yes, life is all about purposefully fulfilling a purpose. Uncle Chris fulfilled his purpose in more ways than one. And if we want to continue on with his legacy, we all need to live our purpose. Uncle Chris, I will miss you. Maina, Marie, and I will take care of Dad. We love you always. Your dearest niece, Shazan Kafura Wamboi Kirubi.
I'm back again. My tribute to my dearest Uncle Chris is basically in two fond memories I have of him. I broke it down to what I thought of him as a guide and as a father figure. Now, many of you know that Uncle Chris liked to coin nicknames for people. Actually, he called my sister Skinny, and he called me the lawyer, or the stubborn one. And one of the memories that comes with this is when I finished high school, and I actually didn't want to do law. And my dad said, you go tell Uncle Chris that you don't want to do law anymore. And when I went to him, he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I have an interest in writing. And he said, well, you can do some writing for some articles on the Capital FM website for about 3 months. But I want you to do a report for me after that and tell me what you've learned in those 3 months. And by the time I was done, it was clear to me I did want to do writing, but in a different sense. I still wanted to do law. I was just confused about it. And in that way, that is how he was a guide. He was always there to show you the way, but he would do it in such an intelligent way so that you find the path for yourself. As a father figure, he was always there for us. As Susan said, he loved his nieces and his nephews dearly. He loved the youngins in the family. He always had time for us and our stories. I remember last year when I got my first car, I used to go see Uncle Chris on Sundays, and he asked me, why do you come here on Sundays? And I said, well, there are no cars on the road, and that's when I can drive. And he said, where, watcha? And I said, yes, Uncle Chris, that's the only time I can drive. And he said, I will make a point to call you every Saturday, every Friday, every Monday, every Tuesday, and tell you to come and see me so that you can drive to my house. And he did that, and he did that constantly. And every time I came, he said, were you scared? And I said, no. And finally, I got the courage to do it. And to us, that was Uncle Chris. We loved him so much, but now he'll rest. Thank you.
I call upon Christopher to do a piece. Are you ready? All right. As you can see, I think we have very many family members. We are going to go to Robert Kirubi.
Pastor Wairimu and the Faith Evangelistic Ministries, honored guests, good afternoon. Before I begin, and I can see he's gone now, I was not personally aware that the Honorable Odinga recommended the hospital in Boston to my father. Besides the wonderful care that they gave him, the hospital canteen had the best chocolate cake I've ever eaten. And while spending time with Dad in his hospital room, I could go through several slices a day, much to his amusement. This has been an amazing and uplifting week. It has kept my sister, our entire family, and I going through a very difficult time. We sincerely thank you for your kindness and your empathy. You've all told amazing stories about his generosity, his intelligence, his work ethic, but there's perhaps one thing that hasn't been mentioned to its fullest, and it may come as a surprise to many of you. Dad loved a good argument, especially with me. After I left Kenya to go to university and later on to work, I'd come home every so often on holiday, and we established a little routine between us. The night I was leaving home to go back to work or to university, whatever it was, we'd have dinner together at home, either just the two of us or with some family members around. We'd almost always get into an argument about something. It was our manly Kirubi way of telling each other that we'd miss each other. And it used to be quite profitable for me. Before I stormed off and got in the car, he'd always make sure at the end of the argument that my pockets were filled with either US dollars or pounds. I remember one particular discussion. I asked Dad, have you ever thought of what you will do when you retire from work? I blame my youth and naivety at the time. As you can imagine, things went downhill very quickly. I'll spare you the blow-by-blows, but we got into a very technical discussion about the definition of work. Dad was extremely vocal and clear that what I did at DHL was work. There was absolutely nothing about what he did every day that could be classified as work. That conversation came rushing back to my mind over the last few days. As he annoyingly always was, Dad was right. The thing is, though, I've heard a lot about loss. And personally, after this week, I refuse to accept that we have lost anything. As I look around this wonderful church, I recall the individual conversations I've had with many of you at home, all the wonderful tributes from everyone. My sister and I, our whole family, have not lost anything. Our father lives on in every single person he touched, every person who acted upon his advice, counsel, and mentorship. I call upon everyone who understood what Dr. Chris Kirubi stood for to take whatever they have learned from him and make sure they take positive action to focus and continue to do the right things for themselves, their families, the community, and for this country. And most importantly, I call upon you to help others around you as my father helped you. Invest in people as he did his whole life. He may not be physically here, but that is how he will continue to live amongst us forever. I won't accept that we have lost him, and I look to you all to hold yourselves accountable to take his wisdom forward. If you don't, like my father, you'll come to understand I also love a good argument. To quote Mark Twain, the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. My father, Dr. Chris Kirubi, found out why very early in life, and he spent his life expressing that reason to and through all of us. Let us all honor his reason in Jesus' name. Thank you.
I would like to thank you very much for being patient. I think we have another day, which is tomorrow, and the rest of the tributes, I think we'll be able to do them at home. So basically, I would like to call Andrew Musangi to tomorrow. Vote of thanks. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. Just as two announcements, I think the family members and the committee will head up upstairs after we finalize here. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. You have been seated for a while. You might want to stand. We want to appreciate the friends, political class, family for the wonderful tributes. He certainly is a man who has lived his life and his purpose well. Why don't you just put your hands together for Dr. Chris for the good life that he has lived.
The Lord is my shepherd. The Lord's my shepherd. I'll not want. He makes me down to He pastures me. He leadeth me. The quiet waters by. My soul.
Presiding Bishop and founder of Jubilee Christian Church.
Thank you so much, Pastor Ray. Thank you so much. I want to take this opportunity and just acknowledge my spiritual authority for giving me the privilege to share the word of God. And to just also acknowledge and thank God for you, for being patient to wait until the word of God is shared. Let me just on behalf of my wife and our family, wish say a big condolences on the loss of your dad, your granddad.